guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. I'm really excited about this reading vlog because I am picking up one of the most popular fantasy books of right now. That's right guys, I'm gonna be reading Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Before we dive into more details about the book and this vlog, I did want to shout out that this video is sponsored by Cricut and I'll be doing a fun wedding craft later on, but let's sit down and talk a little bit more about Fourth Wing. So if you haven't heard, Fourth Wing, which is a recent romantasy fantasy release, it's pretty much taken the internet by storm. I have seen this book everywhere, on YouTube, on Book Talk. It has a 4.21 rating on Goodreads. And I just got to see for myself what this book is about, how I feel about it, and I thought it'd be a really fun book to vlog the process of reading, and I will openly share my thoughts and feelings about the book itself. But what is this book? This is a romantasy leaning story. And it basically follows our main character who was determined to just be a historian, a scribe in the world in which she lives, but her mother is the general of the army and she calls her up to become a part of this like elite group of dragon riders. The competition to gain one of these dragon seats is very, very fierce because there's a limited amount of dragons and obviously you have to be well trained and strong and all of those things. So she kind of joins this competition. I think it all kind of stems from there. I'm curious about this one. Here are a few things I want to also say before, I start reading and dive into this vlog. I'm going into this book, one, with an open mind, and two, I'm going into this book with romantasy expectations. I think if I went into this thinking this is going to be the most mind-boggling fantasy novel from a world-building plot character point of view, I probably wouldn't like it, but I'm gonna go in from a romantasy point of view. I'm looking to be entertained by the characters. I'm hoping there is a mildly coherent fantasy setting. Does it exist? We will see. And hoping for some angsty will they, won't they romance. Generally speaking, I'm looking to be entertained. And we're just gonna have to find out together. Those are the expectations I'm going into this book with. Do I think this book is gonna be a new all-time favorite read? No. Do I think it could possibly be a book I read quickly and enjoy? Possibly, but there's only one way to find out. So that, my friends, is what we're doing for this vlog. We are reading Fourth Wing, which I got on my Kindle because I quite literally cannot find a physical copy of this book anywhere. But anyway, welcome to the Cozy Reading Vlog. I'm excited for you to be here. I'm also excited to see y'all's thoughts and opinions about this book in the comments. I just feel like this will be a fun one to read together and discuss. So I'm excited about it nevertheless. But anyway, let's get going with my day. I need to make lunch and then I'm gonna sit down and do quite a bit of reading this afternoon. I got caught up in making it. I forgot to vlog it, but I made a pesto pasta salad, which I just added to some arugula, which I seasoned. Should be a tasty lunch. And now I have a lot of leftover pasta salad for the next couple of days, which is key because I'm going to be reading. Hello friends, I am about to sit down and start the book. I'm gonna get myself a fresh cup of coffee to enjoy. It feels like a necessary accessory to whatever this book is about to provide. So let's join Matilda in the front room and get some reading done. Hello, I have read 10% of Fourth Wing. I'm not even sure how long this book is. I will find that out a little bit later. 10% is 3 chapters and good news, this book reads very quickly. I think the speed and the pacing is both to its benefit and its detriment so far, but like, am I entertained? Am I curious about what's happening? Yeah, sure, definitely. So in this book, we follow our main character, Violet. And Violet's mom is a general of the army. Violet, our main character, is very smart. She's strong, she's fierce, she's all of those things. She does suffer from a chronic health condition. And she's pretty much spent her whole life like more preparing for a scribe role, despite the fact that her mother and a lot of her siblings were very much involved in the military. Surprising to her, she's basically voluntold to join the military instead of becoming a scribe, and basically start a set. It's almost like military school meets trials. Basically, to become a cadet or a dragon rider in this world, you have to train amongst other people over a span of 3 years, but you kind of have to like survive, which in and itself is difficult, and go through various trials and tribulations to like move your way up the ranks to possibly maybe one day getting a dragon. The book opens really quickly. Like, there's a lot of very fast world building. In some ways it was clever, in some ways it was like a little convenient, but like it was what it was, and it helped me like understand what was going on. She really wastes no time. It basically opens on the first trial to become a dragon rider, as we watch Violet like prepare for that. We meet her mom, we meet her sister, we feel a whole gamut of emotions as she's processing being forced into this very dangerous situation. And we also watch her meet a lot of people as she enters this school, and you can kind of see like how they're going to fit into the story. First, we see the very handsome, very brooding, and mysterious third year character named Xaden, who is the son of a rebel forced to conscript into the military. She's very sure that he hates her and is gonna kill her. Maybe they do hate each other, you know? Immediate dislike for each other. She quickly makes a friend in line, who's probably gonna be her like BFF in the school. And we also meet another character named Dane, who's like her childhood bestie, who's probably gonna be like a very controlling character and just trying to like save her the whole time. I can definitely see a lot of the trappings of how this book plot-wise is going to be set up within just the first 10% of reading it. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, because I can see what it's doing. And I say that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I wasn't expecting this book to blow my mind. I was hoping for like an angsty, will they, won't they, enemies to lovers situation, and it's delivering that. It's entertaining. The dragon stuff is intense. I'm curious if I'm gonna like the dragon elements of this. Sometimes I go back and forth with dragon fantasy. I can think like animal fantasy is a little weird, but sometimes it works for me. Sometimes it doesn't, so we'll just see. But yeah, I mean, I'm entertained so far. It definitely has a lot of like stereotypical things. You know, but it makes it fun nevertheless. I like our main character Violet. For the most part, she doesn't annoy me at all. Sometimes she loves a sassy one-liner. She truly loves a sassy one-liner. I don't know if I'm like totally in love with, but for the most part, the 10% read quickly. I'm curious to see how this is going to continue to progress. I like a school setting. I like a training setting. So I think like the setup of this, or like the arena in which this book is going to take place in, is one that'll work, you know, and be entertaining to me, but we're just gonna have to see. We're just gonna have to see for ourselves. I'm gonna read more tonight, but for now, I'm going to change into pajamas, you know, like I'm not already in comfortable clothes, and start making dinner. I forgot to vlog the end result of dinner, but I am vlogging my ice cream cone, so at least there's that. Alrighty, friends, I've not been the best vlogger tonight, but we're sitting down to do more reading. Millie is here. It's also last night having to sleep in the guest room as our AC is getting fixed tomorrow. Well, hopefully. But in the meantime, it's time to read. Hi guys, I interrupt my fourth wing vlog and rant to bring you a really fun wedding craft. That's right, this video is sponsored by Cricut, one of the true loves of my life, because they've completely transformed how I've looked at crafting and tackling DIY by myself. If you're not familiar, Cricut is an incredible product line that offers a bunch of machines and materials that allow your like DIY dreams to come true. I have made so many things over the years with my Cricut, from stickers to labels to bookmarks last month, and now I'm gonna be using it to make a bunch of wedding supplies, which is gonna save me so much time and money. But the fantastic thing about Cricut is they make it so easy and seamless and so much less intimidating to get into various design projects that it's just been a blast to learn it over the years. And in particular, their Cricut design space is incredible. Not only can you use it to explore, to find a bunch of projects that they already have uploaded, you can customize your own or just make something from scratch. So it's just really user-friendly, really straightforward, allowing you to focus more on your creativity and the project you're interested in making versus like banging your head against the wall, like trying to even figure out where to begin, which we just love. Before I dive into my wedding project itself, which we're going to do together, I'm gonna of course have all of my Cricut materials linked down below, from my machine to the products I'm using today, as well as a few really great Cricut starter bundles if you're interested in learning more. But let's talk about my project. So friends, today we're gonna be making place cards for my wedding. If there's one thing about weddings, everything is way too expensive. So I am taking on the duty of making my place cards and my menus by myself, which again, is gonna save us a pretty coin, which we love. Here is the design for my place cards. I wanted a hand like written look, but because I have terrible handwriting, that's where my Cricut comes in, because they can have it look like this seamless, beautiful, handwritten, perfect font with a marker. But I don't have to mess up a million place cards. My Cricut will just make it flawless. So here I just have the exact dimensions of my place cards with the names. I also have this little floral design, which they'll also be able to draw. I just input everything on my new mat back here. My Cricut is gonna do all of the work, saving me so much money, time, and stress, which we love. I also just really like the idea of like having the element of my wedding that I've done myself, which I think is cool. And then I'm gonna add these little pretty sage green ribbons to the top of the place cards too. So let's get started. Alrighty, all of my little place cards are stuck to my mat to match the same pattern as my design in the Cricut design space. Okay, because I'm an indecisive bride, I changed the font and design of my placards, and I've decided to only use the black just to keep it simple. And then of course I'll still have my ribbon. So anyway, let's load this into my Cricut and you'll be amazed by how beautiful its handwriting is. Putting in my mat. Now I press go and away it goes. It's so cool because it kind of just like makes shapes and then it turns into something else entirely. And it's amazing. Wow, look at these 100% handwritten place cards created by me and my Cricut. Now we just have to add the ribbon and my first set are done. Alrighty, and my first set of little place cards are done. I really love how they turned out. I think they're gonna look so nice on top of like a napkin, on a plate, a little DIY moment. Thrilled. Again, if you guys want to learn more about Cricut, I'm so chuffed with these. I will of course have everything linked down below, again including all the materials I used today as well as some of my favorite bundles. I'm truly obsessed with my Cricut Explore 3. I would be lost without it. Thank you again to Cricut for sponsoring this video. Let's jump back into fourth wing. Hi friends, good morning-ish. I haven't been able to check in so far today because we've had people in our house installing our new AC unit because our AC unit broke for the past like 6 hours, but it's done. They were amazing. They just left. We now have AC, which I couldn't even begin to express how happy I'm about, but I'm about to get back on track with reading. But I actually wanted to give y'all a reading update of fourth wing because I am about 17% of the way through. So my first update was more of like a synopsis. Obviously, again, this is a military school leaning romantasy story. We follow our main character Violet, who's basically forced into attending this dragon academy. It's super dangerous. We're constantly told how dangerous it is. She has a instant BFF who I like, but it was so instantaneous. And then we also have a childhood best friend who will do anything to protect her that we're introduced to, and then a enemy who she feels like is going to kill her, and maybe he feels the same, who's a third year at this academy. That's kind of like where we're at. Overall, positives, and then I'll go into the stuff that's kind of bothering me as a reader. Positives of this book, it reads quickly. It's like an entertaining read. It's not like a super intense read. Like it doesn't require like a lot of my brain or focus to like pick up. So from terms of just like wanting to be purely entertained, I'm interested. Violet as a main character isn't that unlikable, which I feel like I have a personal issue. This is like a personal problem. When I read romantasy, for some reason, I have a hard time with main characters in this genre, generally speaking, just because of how like the general stereotypes and tropes that they're written in. And Violet has some of those like quirks. And I also just think in general, she's like a more interesting and dynamic character than we might typically get in this world. I think the military and the school setting is a great and interesting one. Especially for like a romantic plot line to play out. It's insular, there's classes, there's competition, there's dynamics between students that for the most part can be an interesting time. But let's move into the parts of the book so far that's kind of like throwing me off. And again, going into this, I wasn't expecting this to be like a fantasy masterpiece. I'm trying to go in with an open mind and kind of keep my perspective in the lane that it's playing in, which is romantasy, but I just can't help to let my mind wander a little bit. Two things that have kind of bothering me, I guess, right off the bat. The first is the world building. Here's the deal. This book doesn't have a lot of world building, and it's not in the way that sometimes you read a fantasy book and the author throws you right in and you're just trying to piece things together as you go along. The markings of that style of world building fantasy writing is in general one I really enjoy. I love feeling confused and like trying to piece things together, but predominantly I feel like what's supposed to occur is you go into a book and you're almost overwhelmed by the vast scale of the world that you're just sort of plopped in, and you're using all of these clues and conversations and situations to try to piece things together to figure out how everything works. And I just feel like this book like doesn't have a lot of world building, but like not in a way that's like purposeful, if that makes sense. So basically it opens up with Violet talking to her mom, and she's like, you gotta go to Dragon Military School, and she's like, I don't wanna, but she goes anyway. And then from there it's like a really fast read, but we kind of go from point A, point B to point C, and she's in the military academy. Not much is explained in how the world works, how the government works, how her mother works and operates within the military itself, why she has to go to the military academy. The beginning just feels kind of like a speed run to get us to the fantasy plot that the author wants to write in, if that makes sense. Like she wanted to write a military academy fantasy romance story, and we wanted to get there as quickly as possible. So I would say because of that, like the fantasy world of this book so far feels very small and contained to this military academy. What happens in and around it, while important and can inform some of the conversations happening within the book so far, it's not really our author's prerogative to kind of go in depth to explain why everyone is there to begin with. Granted, I'm only 17% of the way through. We could have some more world building and info dumping like later on, but it just felt like in the beginning anyway, it was just kind of like, boom, it's a fantasy setting, we're in a military academy, don't worry about the other stuff, like let's get started, you know? And the other thing that's kind of throwing me off a bit is like the violence, which I'm not even criticizing the use of violence in this book, but what is weird is how the violence is paired with how the characters interact with the violence in this story. And let me elaborate a little bit. So right off the bat, we're basically told within this book that this military academy is incredibly dangerous. And the author underscores this with literally us reading about how 50 students died just trying to pass the first event within this book to gain entrance into this academy. Very traumatic, very dangerous, hostile. Students will basically murder each other to try to improve their own standing within the academy. You get the idea. Like it's a very intense and dark place. So we have these moments of like extreme horror, but then almost in contrast and very, very quickly, we have these like quippy moments almost about the death or like right after the death that's like a little strange in some regards. Like I would say like the vibe of a lot of the character interactions give like Gossip Girl in a romantasy fantasy setting. And sometimes those scenes can be really fun and it's great to see Violet like make friends or even like flirt and stuff, but it can be a little disorienting when it's like, I just witnessed 50 people die, let's make a sexual innuendo with this hot BFF I haven't seen in a while. And I just feel like the whiplash of some of those scenes can kind of throw me off. And I almost feel like because the violence is like so extreme and what the author is trying to show, like the danger of this place, it's almost like having the opposite effect in its payoff in the writing. Especially because I feel like she's treating it more like everyone witnessed a fist fight versus like a literal murder in front of their eyes. And so because of that, sometimes I feel like a little bit pulled out of the story. But again, I'm not trying to say this is the worst thing I've ever read, but because I'm featuring this and kind of reading the whole thing, I thought I would kind of focus on all the elements of the reading experience. It's by no means so far a terrible book. It's so far 17% in. I would say it's kind of sitting in the middle of like romantasy books for me personally. It's a lot better than some of them I've read, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite so far, but I am generally entertained. But I felt the need to kind of like elaborate on some of my thoughts and feelings just given the popularity of this book, and then also some of the things people say about like how fantastic like the plot and fantasy writing is. So I thought I would kind of deep dive a little bit in that arena as well. But I have rambled enough, everyone. I'm gonna finally get changed for the day because I've been in my PJs and make some lunch and do some more reading. AC is back. We even got one of these fancy new, thinking about the overall cost, but hey, at least we got a fancy new Nest. But no, honestly, the fact that it's like I could be in my bedroom again and there's AC on another level of happiness. Also wanted to shout out, I am dressed, but kind of like just kind of sort of. Getting dressed is kind of an illusion today, and that's fine. For lunch, I was looking out for myself because I made this pasta salad yesterday, which I also get to enjoy today. Love it. And I put it in like a bed of arugula as well. So we'll whip that up together really fast.
애써 웃음 짓고 있지만 다 알아 금방이라도 넌 울 듯해 문득 모든 게 서럽게 느껴진다면 내게 기대어 행여나 그대 외로움에 날 찾아도 같은 곳에서
Yum. Yum. I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing anything but reading, but I've bribed myself with a coffee and we're gonna pick back up Fourth Wing. I'm gonna say it's gonna get better. I'm gonna say it's gonna get better. Hi. So I have read 175 pages of this book. I'm like 25% of the way through. The book is 538 pages, so I'm making good progress. I'm having like a love-hate relationship with this book because parts of it I'm finding relatively entertaining. Other parts of it I'm finding so distracting because I'm just like, huh? So let's talk through it. Let's start with the positives. I like our main character, Violet. I like her cunning, I like her intelligence, I like her creativity to get around issues that, you know, normal people when they feel like they can't do something would just stop. She has been having to do a version of this her entire life, and I like her hard work. She is a Nepo baby, which is established at the beginning of this story, but she's a hardworking Nepo baby, okay? She's a clever one. But I do like that element of this story. I also feel like as a POV character, she is likable, she's relatively compelling, and her tension, the back and forth that is with Xaden, who is definitely like our main male love interest, is also pretty entertaining to read. They have pretty good back and forth. There's lots of, you know, there's lots of burning glances and intensity between the two main characters. There's training sequences, which are always pretty entertaining, especially when they're supposed to hate each other. This stuff in a romantasy, good. Some of the stuff that's bothering me continues to be the world building and the characterization in this book. Violet and Xaden, I would say, they are by far the most dynamic characters in this story. The author, and Xaden still like not really, but you can tell he's going to be like fleshed out more later. They are the most developed characters in this book. Makes sense, they're the main characters, but they feel at least tangible. Everyone else feels kind of like a caricature, which makes it hard for me to care about them. Particularly Violet's friends, who I enjoy in scenes. They're funny, they have quippy lines, but they're not really established. They're just kind of like filling the role as like sassy BFF in books. So if something happens to me, our main character will be sad and you, the reader, will be sad, like kind of thing. Like I don't really feel like they are really fleshed out enough to make me care about them. Do you think the most interesting part of this book, which has been very, very brief, is Xaden's character and how he is attached to a group of students within this academy because they're basically forced to conscript because of the crimes of their parents and them being rebels, clearly pointing to some type of larger question about the government and also like the morality of having children have to fight for the sins of their parents, but also like, what is even this government fighting for? Like, are these kingdoms that they're fighting even bad? We don't know. Will we find out? I'm not sure. Hopefully this part of the story is elaborated more on because it is interesting. That part intrigued me. I'm curious about this. Give me more about Xaden's background. Give me more about these students' background. I want to know. I want to know more about this world. Give me information. From a world building point of view. Okay, so I've already talked about how I feel like there is really very little about this world that's been established outside of this military school. But even the military school like doesn't make sense like the more I think about it, okay? Like sit with me here. So the whole shtick of the school is like, it's so dangerous. The cadets could die at any second. And like most of the cadets do die, right? Like they're being killed off in training or amongst each other. Okay? But hear me out. In the classroom settings, they literally have gone on and on about how the little world building we have gotten about like the actual military conflict is that people, they need more people on the front lines. Like the army is stretched thin. So riddle me this. Why are you killing off half of the conscripts who are volunteering for the army before they're even like out fighting? Like why is your American Ninja Warrior obstacle course, which don't even get me started on how much that is quite literally a copy and paste of American Ninja Warrior. Like it doesn't make sense to kill off 75% of your cadets when you could just demote them to a less prestigious part of the army if you are, you know, needing soldiers. The argument that it's supposed to represent how cutthroat the front lines are also doesn't make sense. Like, why are you killing your own soldiers for the argument of, well, the enemy will kill you too? Well, you're doing your enemy's job. It doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, just demote people. Anyway, so that's bothering me. Like, the whole structure and intensity of the school is just like nonsense to me. Other than that, it does still read fast. Like, I'm entertained watching our main character problem solve and like work through all these different trials. Basically what's going on, your first year in the school, you try to make it to an event called the Threshing. If you make it to this event, you have the opportunity to get paired up with a dragon. And we have had some world building in this arena because if you're paired up with a dragon, you're presented some type of magical power. Like the aura of a dragon infuses you with magic and you have some type of power, which is kind of interesting, but we haven't gotten there yet. That's kind of like what we know is going on. So I feel like I'm being harsh on this book. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I wasn't expecting to have my mind blown by this story, but I feel like either make your plot tighter, like don't try to include so much so it's like there's holes in it, or like take the time to like really flesh things out or like really think things through, because I don't know. That's how I feel about this situation. But anyway, I'm gonna read more. Right now. I'm trying to get over the 30% mark. I'll let y'all know. I literally am not gonna get over the fact that the gauntlet, this obstacle course they have to run, is quite literally American Ninja Warrior. Hi, I promise I'm not trying to be a hater, so I'm taking a break from my book. I have passed the 200 page mark. We're gonna reset, collaborate, there's Clay, and I'm gonna make dinner, which is going to be another grill moment, because as I said, I'm a grill master now. Watch out, Bobby Clay. The skewers are ready for grilling. The grilling is complete. Dinner is done. Clay and I, before I get back to reading my favorite book on the planet, Clay and I are watching more Silo. I was telling Clay about Fourth Wing too. I think he's gonna read it soon. We're back in business, back in my normal bedroom. Now that our AC is fixed, and I'm gonna sit down and read more Fourth Wing. I'm gonna try to get to page like 250-ish tonight, like close to the 50% mark of this book. I'm curious to see where it's gonna take us next. Maybe like the second act will be more my speed. We've been hinting at a lot of dragons. I've only seen a hint of dragons, so maybe the plot will be more to my liking once they are introduced, and you know, maybe the plot will go into its next progression. But there's only one way to find out, so let's get back to reading. Good morning, everyone. I'm 60% of the way through Fourth Wing. Let's talk about it, shall we? So, what even are my thoughts? Okay, so I am still of two minds about this book. My camera is falling down. I would say I'm still very much of two minds about this book. Here's the deal, to take a step back, because I feel like I have been really critical about the world building of the story, and that has not changed. I still feel like the world building is very inconsistent and non-present. And I would say, generally speaking, going into a romantasy style story, I'm not someone, a fantasy reader, who expects to have the most intricate world or rules of this world, but what I do hope is that if there is sort of a lack of world building, it's not distracting to the story or the point of the story and why I'm reading it, which is like the more like action romance part. But unfortunately for Fourth Wing, it has been distracting, which is why I've been commenting on it so much, because I just like can't, it pulls me out of scenes because I'm like, you know? But to move on to where I'm at now, I'm 60% of the way through. I almost feel like this book is segmented into two parts, and I actually feel like the story maybe would have benefited if they made each part actually its own fleshed out book. Namely because I feel like we kind of speed run elements of like explaining why things are happening or giving us context to the world which is influencing what is going on to kind of keep the action forward. On the other side of that, it does read fast. I am actually liking the second part of this book so far. I'm 10% past the 50% mark. Then the first part of this book, we have been introduced to the dragons more. We get more context on how the dragon lore works, the magic, and I do find that element to be a bit more interesting. I also feel like there has been a decrease on the amount of like ceaseless amounts of people dying at this academy. There are still deaths that are very flippantly written off or like processed, but there's a lot less. So I feel like you're actually able to get to know some of the characters that are around Violet. What else is going on though? We definitely have a much more center stage romantic tension, which is starting to form between our main character Violet and Xaden. Our main character, our Nepo baby, is also learning about war crimes of her people, and she is shocked. Here's another instance where I just wish we had more information, and I understand it likely will be a reveal, but we still don't even really understand how Violet's government works, what their military history is, like what is even the propaganda that they're feeding their people, so that we can then be surprised about how that is likely false and how Xaden's people were likely taken advantage of by these people. But we don't even know like the party line of what's going on like at all. So that's kind of the part that's sort of bothering me a bit. We are getting a tad bit more world building. We're getting a bit more information with the rebel students who are involved in the school, which also feels like a little nonsensical to me, but like we don't have to go into more in depth about that part. The romantic tension between the two main characters is pretty good. It's fun. I've personally always struggled with dragon or just like fantastical characters like sharing consciousness, and then especially in like a romantic setting, I think it can get like a little weird, a little bestiality if you ask me. But like again, maybe teach their own, I suppose. Other than that, as I've consistently said, Xaden and Violet's character have always been the most fleshed out, but I do feel like some of the side characters are slightly being rounded out more, which I enjoy. There's a larger cast of friends and side characters surrounding Violet, and their camaraderie is continuing to grow, which I enjoy. I will say Dane is the most annoying character on the planet. I know he's supposed to be, but he's like almost like mustache twirly in a way that makes me just like want to punch him in the face. And if I hear Violet go, "He's my best friend," one more time, I'm gonna jump off a cliff, because nothing has actually been built up to express how they have a legitimate friendship, because it doesn't seem like he knows or understands her at all. And if you claim to be someone's best friend for like 18 years, he doesn't seem to know anything about her. It's like the most surface friendship, and maybe that's part of what's to be discovered, but clearly they had a relationship in the past, and I don't see that. So the sort of evolution of their relationship and the frustration she's feeling just feels strange, because like I never bought their friendship to begin with, you know what I mean? Any whoosies, the plot is heating up, the romance is heating up, 40% of this book is left for me to read. Will we get more information about the world? Who knows? Will we get more information about the past? Who knows? Will we likely get some steamy scenes? Probably. Hopefully they're not influenced by the dragons, because I kind of think that's a little weird for me personally. But anyway, that's where we're at with Fourth Wing. Thank you for tuning in. I will be reading more today. Lunch is served, and we even have little olive cups. It's 4:19. No one look at the clock. I'm breaking the rules. I'm having a cup of coffee because I'm truthfully just I'm very sleepy, okay? I just don't feel like doing anything, so here we are, making a mess. I'm gonna read more Fourth Wing. So that's what's on the agenda right now. It's time for me to see what happens in this book, whether I like it or not. Let's do it. Guys, we're 75% of the way done with Fourth Wing, and I'm about to take my evening break, make dinner, watch Silo with Clay before we continue on. Definitely on track to finish this book tomorrow, because probably the most probably one of the best elements of this book is that it reads fast. You know, it's definitely written to be you know, compulsive to read. And while some of the elements of the plot I encounter I don't like, I'm only going to be positive in this vlog update because we're going to try. Because I'm on a positivity kick. So first off, I think it's interesting to just think about like hype in general for a book like this. I think if I picked this book up without like knowing it has like 200,000 reviews and a 4.21, I probably would maybe be less harsh, but I feel like with any book that has a lot of love, it's hard not to go in not being like reading something with like a closer eye just to see like what everyone is talking about, because you have expectations. It's like you go watch a movie after you hear like 80 people say it's the best movie they've ever seen, and it ends up just being kind of a 3 out of 5 for you. That's going to be a little surprising, and you're going to kind of want to unpack that, you know? It's kind of what I feel about this book, but maybe not quite a 3 out of 5. But anyway, positive things. One thing I will say about Rebecca Yarros' writing is, while I don't necessarily agree with her plot building and like her world building, her writing style is pretty engaging. And I think for the most part, she has a pretty good handle on dialogue. Don't get me wrong, like with any romantasy, there's some cheesy scenes. There are some elements of the dialogue that I'm personally not a fan of, but I know it's part of the style of this genre, so I'm not necessarily going to be critical of like her skill in that, if that makes sense. I haven't found like her word choice to be too clunky or anything along those lines. Is the pacing there for me? Not necessarily, but the actual like quality of her word choice within this genre I think is like pretty fine. I am enjoying the romantic tension between Xaden and Violet. He calls her Violence. I mean, it's fun. It's like the classic setup. If anything, it's probably like a little bit better than some recent romantasy books I have read. I like that it's a prolonged style of pacing in the romantic element. I personally really enjoy that. I like there being a long wait, a lot of will they, won't they, a lot of tension, a lot of discord between two characters. I wouldn't say this book was ever like hate to love. I think it was definitely more like dislike, suspicion to like sort of situation. I like that there is this sort of magical element attached to the dragons. Outside of there being just like dragons that these people ride, there's also almost like an X-Men quality where everyone manifests some type of magical power that's unique to them. So I think the surprise and the exploration of that element is a cool concept. Do I think there needs to be more like training and understanding of how these things work? Yes, but is the idea interesting? Also yes. Overall, so far, 75% into this book, the strength of this story is in the romance element of it, I guess, like within the genre itself. The fantasy elements are not necessarily bad ideas. Those are my thoughts and feelings at this juncture. We have 25% of this book left, and I really don't know where the plot is going. We haven't had a lot like actually revealed to us, so I'm curious if like the reveal will just be the plot. That sounds really bad, but like I don't know, like I don't know where this is going to end. I feel like there's like I can kind of see hints, like I can see hints of like what she's seeding. And I'm just kind of curious if like that's where we're gonna go, but I just don't know how much is really going to be like explained or revealed based on like what we've gotten so far, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'll read more later. I'm definitely gonna finish this tomorrow. Fourth Wing is winging. It's definitely winging. I don't even know what that means. But it reads fast. I mean, this is over a 500-page book. I've read it pretty quickly, so take that with what you will. Dinner tonight is a collection of things I put on various sheet pans. This is Trader Joe's hash green chili. Mac and cheese, one of my favorites. One chicken thigh, potatoes, zucchini. Clay has convinced me to start our rewatch of Mission Impossible. Well, I say our watch. We watched the first 2 movies about 7 years ago. And now we have finally gotten to movie 3.
You don't need to really watch the first 2. Yeah. I feel like the continuity starts on 3. I only think I've seen 3, 4, and 5.
That's what Clay told me, so that's where we're at.
Not financial.
There's
advice.
still a lot of really great prosthetics, so Anyway, that's what I'm doing tonight. Time to read more of this post Mission Impossible watch. Millie has joined me as well. Well, I just read a certain sequence, let's say. I don't even know. I went from 0 to 1,000 about so fast. It was a scene for sure. It was a scene for sure. It was long. Anyway. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. We're here. Matilda and I are here actually. It's very serious. A very serious reading update that's to be had. No, not really. I'm 85% of the way through Fourth Wing. And I don't even know anymore. So this is a romantasy book. First chunk, lots of fantasy, lots of will they, won't they, all those things. We hit the romance element of this book. It was a time. It was a sequence of scenes for sure. Very aggressive, to be honest. It is what it is in that regard, you know what I mean? But let's talk about what I'm feeling about the book in general. It's funny because I feel like I've been complaining so much about the world building in this book and just like the general plot writing, and it just continues to persist. Like, there's definitely sexual tension between our two main characters, and I have said that, and I find our main character to be interesting to read from the perspective of, but like their relationship outside of having like brooding longing stares and like quippy back and forths and I hate you, blah, blah, blah. Like there hasn't been any development in terms of them like really knowing the other person, which honestly is not a problem. Like if you want to write a romance book where these people try to stay away from each other because they dislike each other, but they feel like they have to get together and finally something happens, that's fine. You can have sexual tension with someone you don't really know that well, especially when he's like super tall and super hot. But what happens in this book is it's literally like, I hate you, I love you, but like they literally have had maybe 10 conversations, and those conversations are always like 1 word, 2 word exchanges. Like could she, how, like girl, you are in lust, not in love, which is fine, but like be self-aware. I just feel like this plot line has gone from like 0 to 100 and we still do not know what the point of anything is. Anyway, it's fine. Like here's the thing, this book is fine. I'm gonna finish it. I have 15% of this book left. But sometimes it's a little like, you know, you read a book and you're like, this is gonna win the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Fantasy of the Year, and you just kind of have to come to terms with that. Honestly, it's fine. It's not the worst book I've ever read. The writing isn't like terrible, but I feel like when you're reading the plot and the characters and the development of things, it's kind of like you have to squint your eyes and connect the dots yourself. Like almost the reason why this plot feels semi-coherent is because we can infer and use context from other types of fantasy and romance stories to fill in the blanks that the author isn't filling in herself. Does that make sense? It's like, I have read a lot of academy stories that maybe center competition, perhaps dragons, especially with military dramatics, governments that aren't telling the whole truth. So I can infer what is going on behind the scenes and what is not really being told to us or expressed just because I've read similar stories that use those types of tropes. But she doesn't like get credit for that. Like I feel like a lot of how and why her plots is working is just because we've already encountered plots like hers before, if that makes sense. And now the character relationships are under development. She didn't need to go there. Apparently this is gonna be a series. Like why are we here? Well, we could still just be here. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's honestly whatever. Like the thing that annoys me too about this book is it reads fast. Like this is pretty entertaining. Like there's parts of it that aren't bad, but then she like does things that are like unnecessary that makes it bad. Like it could just be like a good run-of-the-mill romantasy series, but instead I have to deal and jump through all of these plot holes and close my eyes and pretend like I didn't read that, you know? Anywhoosies. I'm curious to see how it's gonna end. I know this is gonna be a series. Like, we're just gonna see what happens near the tail end. This isn't as bad as that one Jennifer L. Armentrout series by any means. Like, that had an even murkier fantasy backdrop, but I don't know. Some of it just feels so just underdeveloped, including the relationship. Just give me more. Give me more. We deserve more. We deserve better. For lunch today, I thought it'd be fun to try out the Trader Joe's tteokbokki. I haven't had their frozen rice cakes before. I grabbed it last time I was there, so we're gonna give it a try. Let's try. Time to get some reading in. Hi guys, welcome to the end of the vlog. I have finished Fourth Wing. Truth be told, I don't even know what's left there is to say. I went into this book hoping to enjoy it, hoping to be entertained by it, and unfortunately throughout the reading experience of this book, despite how hard I tried, I just didn't like it that much. The first half, I thought the world building was nonsensical. There was very little information about how the world worked and functioned. In general, I was still very entertained by our main character and the possible romance that was gonna unfold. Unfortunately, in the second half, while some aspects of the world building improved, there were still so little was still like really fleshed out in a satisfying way, in a purposeful way, I should say. And also the romance took like the weirdest pivot in like its intensity and its emotional, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to even like fully digest. I was a lot disappointed by the world, and I was also kind of disappointed by the romance development too. All in all, I'd probably give this book like a 2.5 stars. While the ending had a pretty interesting like cliffhanger, it's hard to like fully appreciate that reveal because there's so little information about this world, the military, how this world works to even like appreciate that reveal, if that makes sense. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts and feelings down below in the comments. Will I be reading the sequel? The answer is maybe, because like maybe some of these issues can be resolved in the next installment. I didn't mind the author's writing style, but I'm just gonna have to wait and see for myself. Only one way to find out though, I guess. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this reading vlog, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.